Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with some more vibes for all you. Yes, I. And this one is another request that I reacted to this year. This one is called Feature History, Fall of Yugoslavia. You know, I remember growing up with Yugoslavia still around, you know what I mean? And I'm interested to see what happened there. You know what I'm saying? And I hope you guys are too. I ain't gonna babble on. Let's YouTube and simmer.
Today we're going to crack open the case on Yugoslavia, or should I say, Yugoslavia. I'm gonna kill myself. Hello and welcome to Feature History, featuring the fall of Yugoslavia and most likely a shitstorm in the comments. Now this video, or videos, are going to be quite long and complicated, so I'm not going to pad this intro out too long, like I'm doing right now. Should really stop. The series of wars that saw the end of Yugoslavia brought a close on an era and opened a new one alongside the dawn of a new millennia. This new era began in an orgy of violence, war crimes and geopolitics. Great stuff. But first I should bring us back to the old era. Then the older era. Maybe even the older era. Get something to eat, this will be a long one. The Balkans, for a measurably long-ass time, has been an ethnically diverse region in Europe. It served as a border of Western, Eastern and Islamic worlds. Its long history consists of many independent kingdoms as well as even more empires attempting to conquer the region. The Byzantines, Ottomans and Austrians all took their shot at the region, but as nationalism took hold in the late 19th century, things were to change. Yugoslavia, a unified kingdom of southern Slavs, was a dream of their intellectuals as early as the 17th century. It'd be the ticket to their independence, a state united and a state that could resist foreign tyranny. Near the end of World War I, the southern Slavs under Austro-Hungarian rule broke away as a state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs. The whole thing was a bit of a mess, and they turned to the only person who had an army in the area, the Kingdom of Serbia. They willingly entered a state of union with Serbia and Montenegro, forming the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes on December 1st, 1918. It was later retitled to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia in 1929, considering the old name was shit. Time passed and the kingdom was alright, but in the late 1930s their province of Croatia was pressured by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy into pushing for more autonomy, and perhaps even independence. In 1941 the kingdom was invaded, divided and conquered. The Croatians were offered an independent state by the Germans. Under a checkered flag, the separatist Croatians were encouraged to begin a genocide against the Serbs, inspired by old religious rivalries. Throughout the war, royalists and partisans fought against the occupation. Communist revolutionary, Josip Broz Tito, distinguished himself when he led the partisans to victory. Tito's partisans were devoted to him, and so the former monarch of Yugoslavia was to remain in exile as Tito, with some support from the Soviets, established the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in 1945. The country was organized as a federation of 6 socialist republics: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Slovenia and Serbia. In addition, Serbia held the 2 autonomous states of Kosovo and Vojvodina, and hosted the country's capital of Belgrade. Under Tito, the country was a dictatorship, a one-party state with a president for life. It operated on propaganda and doing whatever was necessary to maintain brotherhood and unity. Due to disagreements with Stalin and risking a near war with the Soviets, Yugoslavia became a strange blend of East and West in a time where that wasn't a good idea. It was a great idea though, as foreign aid came in from both sides and the country began to liberalize and form a unique brand of socialism known as Titoism. Tito would evoke his former life as a poor farmer and his reputation as a war hero to remain relatable and beloved with the people he reigned over. He was quick to crack down on nationalistic sentiment and so held the country together firmly. But all knew it couldn't last. Tito died on May 4th, 1980, aged 87. The old man had left the people. And so what was after Tito? Well, Tito. The presidency was decentralized and became collective, made up of representatives and a mostly symbolic president of the presidency. It tried to pretend for almost a decade that Tito was living on. Only when the Cold War ended, the foreign aid ceased and the economy came tumbling down did the people realize Tito was gone. The problems caused people to search for someone to blame. In Kosovo, the blame was put on the Albanians living in the area. Kosovar Serbs claimed Kosovar Albanians were pushing them out of the country and began a counter-movement against this. President of Serbia, Ivan Stambolic, decided he would send his right-hand man Slobodan Milosevic to quell the unrest in '87. When he arrived, however, he spoke only what the Kosovar Serbs wanted to hear. He created himself a devoted following. In what would be called the anti-bureaucratic revolution, he used his supporters to force governments in Vojvodina, Montenegro and Kosovo to be replaced with his allies. Eventually, Stambolic was forced to resign in favour of Milosevic in 89. With he and his allies in control of many areas in Yugoslavia,
See, I
his
remember
representative in the presidency,
in the news.
Milosevic, led a voting bloc. The power was used to erode the autonomy of Kosovo and Vojvodina. The Albanian miners of Kosovo collaborated in a strike against this in 89. Milosevic had federal police troops moved in. With this, he could crack down on the Albanians. This kind of action did not sit well with the republics of Croatia and Slovenia. Slovenia's media ran with stories of Milosevic the fascist. Milosevic deemed that this was only spreading unfounded fear of Serbia and attempted to see authorities restrict Slovenia's press, only driving further sentiment that Slovenia must escape Serbia's influence. Milosevic attempted to use his Kosovar Serbs to depose Slovenia's dissident president, Milan Kucan. Croatia backed up Slovenia, refusing passage to the protesters. The political stalemate led to the 14th Congress being convened in January 1990. The Congress was attended by delegates from all republics and provinces. The debate was reform, whether to offer more autonomy to the republics of Yugoslavia or to build a stronger state of brotherhood and unity. Every proposal from Kucan was shot down by the Serbian voting bloc. The climate became tense and very, very frustrating. The Slovenian delegation walked, leaving the Congress. When Milosevic attempted to continue without them, Croatia, Macedonia and Bosnia and Herzegovina walked too. There was no unity to be found. When each republic held their first ever free election, nationalist parties began to defeat the former communist ones in Macedonia, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia. In Croatia, the controversial Franjo Tudjman had come to power under the promise to protect them from Milosevic. His nationalistic sentiment and his readiness to embrace the old checkered flag brought back painful memories of the genocides that had scarred many Serbian families.
History repeating
The
itself.
Croatian Serbs refused to let this happen again and rose up in Kanin in August, securing small arms and barricading roads. They demanded that if Croatia chose to secede, that the Serbian majority areas, or as they would later proclaim themselves, the Republic of Serbian Krajina, would not. Borislav Jovic, now head of the Yugoslav presidency, was ready to offer support to the Croatian Serbs' concerns. Tudjman, however, would not accept this and had helicopters dispatched to Kanin ready to put down the rebellion. Jovic showed his hand when 2 Yugoslav fighter jets intercepted the helicopters and forced them to return to base. Serbia's influence had now consumed the Yugoslav People's Army, and so Tudjman would have to find his own way to fight. Hungarian arms began to be smuggled into Croatia, and at the same time Slovenes held a referendum asking the people if they desired independence. The people answered yes. The results of the referendum and later in 91, the exposure of Croatians' arms smuggling, led to the army command requesting the presidency enact a state of
There's a
emergency.
lot going on
Croatian
here.
representative, Stipe Mjesic, strongly debated the army head in Jovic. He accused the two of attempting to create a greater Serbia, whereas the army head insisted foreign powers were conspiring to destroy Yugoslavia. Regardless if either were true or not, it would mean war. The vote was placed in the Bosnian representative's hands, and after some serious umming and erring, it was rejected. Things calmed very, very slightly, but when Jovic's term came to an end in May and it was time that Mjesic took head, he was blocked and the title offered to another Milosevic loyalist. The Croatians responded with an independence referendum that won in a landslide, most likely because the Croatian Serbs didn't show up to vote. On June 25, 1991, both the republics of Slovenia and Croatia declared their independence, beginning the very violent domino collapse of Yugoslavia.
Man.
The fighting in Croatia had been on for some time, but now with official declarations, the YPA saw fit to involve themselves. They moved an army to Slovenia's border, which immediately prompted reactions from the Slovenes. The meant-to-be, but they totally didn't, decommissioned territorial defences prepared resistance on border checkpoints and important roads, repelling the relatively small initial Yugoslav force. A short war with little casualties, a rarity in future, the conflict would be creatively named the 10-Day War. The European community placed pressure on the belligerents to open negotiations, leading to the Brioni Agreement on July 7, 1991. Croatia, Slovenia and Yugoslavia agreed to withdraw the YPA from Slovenia and allow Slovenia to take control of their borders, given that Croatia and Slovenia suspend their declarations for 3 months. This 3 months barely phased the fighters battling in Croatia, but Slovenia used this time to make themselves into an actual country, while the YPA prepared an invasion into that country that couldn't fail. The plan was scrapped though on the reason that it's Slovenia who gives a shit, and so Slovenia had slipped away, but at the cost of leaving Croatia in the YPA's sights. Tudjman's fight stemmed from his insistence that he'd defend every inch of Croatia. In spite of it though, the rebels had made great successes, securing many Serb-majority towns and then some. Yugoslavia offered support as well, giving the rebels equipment and artillery. Later the YPA itself arrived at the border as peacekeepers.
Man.
Peacekeepers that allowed the rebels to push forward and siege Vukovar in August. Things looked fairly bleak in Yugoslavia, so bleak that Macedonia passed a referendum and left. Just like that. That makes everything seem a bit dramatic. The bleakness also caught the attention of The Hague, who arranged a peace conference with all 6 presidents. Tudjman insisted Croatia had the right to secede. Milosevic countered that then Krajina should too. Lord Carrington, head of the conference, asked if Milosevic would be prepared to accept Croatian independence if it was subject to the human rights of Serbs living outside of Serbia. Milosevic answered yes. When the written deal arrived though, it stated that all 6 republics would take this route. Milosevic could not agree. He had no intentions of breaking up Yugoslavia. By November, Vukovar fell, and those who had resisted were subject to massacre. By the dawn of 1992, a UN ceasefire would put a pause to the pain. However, another conflict had been brewing alongside the Battle of Vukovar. Yep, that's enough of that. I nearly would have gone and spoiled you there. Part 2 will be out around the end of the month if I actually stick to schedule.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff going on there, boy. That's a lot of stuff. It's just like all these little countries there are just fighting with each other. Seems like lately I haven't heard much coming out of there, and there was, so I don't know if we too busy here with all craziness going on that we're not paying attention. But man, we just keep fighting and thing. That's something else. But anyway, I ain't gonna talk too long and thing. I'm gonna find the part 2 and I'm gonna bring that to you guys and thing, and we're gonna watch it together like fam and thing, you know. I hope you guys had a great holiday season. If you all celebrate the holiday season, listen, take care of each other, all right?